Welcome. Today we're going to be showing a build video that centres around Polaris Lance. If you've played any Nightfalls this season, you've probably seen lots of people running builds like this, whether or not it's on different classes or not, but Warlock is probably the best class to run this build, as the exotic pairs perfectly with what the build is doing. The gameplay loop of this build is very simple. Consume your grenade to activate Heat Rises. Once Heat Rises is active, use your melee or a kill with a precision hit from Polaris Lance and immediately Phoenix Dive. Well, if you time this correctly, what this is going to do is allow you to extend the restoration that you get from Phoenix Dive immediately with the kill that you get from either the melee or Polaris Lance. Once you've done that, keep killing things with precision hits with Polaris Lance. Those are going to ignite enemies and cause even more kills. And when you have beefy targets, you can just shoot them 5 times in the head and they're going to ignite every time. Even quicker if multiple people on your fire team are running a similar Polaris Lance build. For this build, we're going to run Daybreak, as this is going to take full advantage of the exotic we're running Dawn Chorus. Repeated attacks from Daybreak will ignite enemies, so that's going to be really useful against bosses, even if it's not the best damage super out there. When you get to the harder tier content like GMs, you can obviously run Well of Radiance, as survivability is obviously going to be very important, but since we're trying to take advantage of restoration with this build, you have to be aware that going inside a Well of Radiance will remove your restoration and it won't come back when you leave. So if you're in a precarious situation, obviously use Well, but just bear that in mind. For abilities, we're running Phoenix Dive, which, as I mentioned, is so that we can get restoration. It also scorches targets when you land and cures your nearby allies, which is just useful. Scorching targets obviously is just another way to deal damage, and our exotic Dawn Chorus buffs all types of scorch that we deal, so that's going to be good. The glide is completely up to you. I like Burst Glide for the reason that everyone already knows, which is that you can increase your movement speed by gliding correctly. For the melee Incinerator Snap, you can run whichever one of these you'd like. In GMs, I actually quite like Celestial Fire, just because you can get those kills from a distance, but Incinerator Snap does a lot more scorch, and basically you can ignite anything if you just shoot it once with Polaris Lance and then Incinerator Snap it. So also it's much quicker to get back, so I find that very useful as well. Fusion Grenade, for a similar reason. This is because it has a very short cooldown. It's powerful when you do use it, especially on this build, as it explodes twice. And it's got such a short cooldown that it's going to make getting Heat Rises very easy, and you'll be able to do it more often. For aspects, we're running Touch of Flame, which buffs your grenades. Obviously, if you're not running Healing, Solar, Fireball, or Fusion Grenades, then don't run this. Instead, run Icarus Dash. But if you are using one of these types of grenades, definitely run Touch of Flame, as it's going to make them more powerful. The other aspect we're running is Heat Rises, which allows you to fire in the air, and it also gives you back melee energy while you are getting kills while airborne. Obviously it gives you the ability to activate Heat Rises, which is what allows that, but very useful. You can get multiple melees very quickly, which you can just throw out for more ignitions. Now for our fragments, we're running Ember of Empyrean, which is just going to extend our restoration indefinitely as long as we keep getting the solar weaponry ability Final Blows, as that's going to help keep us alive. Then we have Ember of Char to spread Scorch from our ignitions, which we're going to be doing all the time, so that's just another way to spread Scorch. Ember of Eruption, which is going to cause our ignitions to have an increased area of effect. Now I don't know the actual numbers on these, but it is noticeably larger. And then lastly, Ember of Ashes, because this is what's going to allow us to get ignitions every 5 headshots with Polaris Lance. It's also just going to mean that our Scorch stacks last longer on enemies, which will allow them to deal more damage over time than they otherwise would. Moving on to armor and mods, starting with the stat distribution, I would recommend 100 Resilience and 100 Discipline just to get your grenades back as quickly as possible. You don't really need to spec into Strength because of all the other things that are going to give you back melee energy, but I am quite comfortable with these. I'd probably say if you could take out some Strength and put it in Recovery, as that's going to get you back your Phoenix Dive quicker. Other than that, the main two are going to be resilience and discipline. For the exotic, we're running Dawn Chorus, as mentioned previously. And what this does is it gives your Daybreak projectiles 90% more damage, and they scorch for 30 scorch stacks on impact. Now that's going to increase to 40 scorch stacks with our Ember of Ashes, so you're going to be igniting targets every 3 hits. Obviously, if you're choosing to run well, you're not going to get the use out of the Daybreak projectiles, but, you know, that's fine as well. Now, it also says your scorch is improved, but what this actually does is it increases their damage by 200%, which is crazy. And you also get 5% melee energy back when you scorch tick damage a target, so that's quite a lot. On the mod, we're running Harmonic Siphon and 2 hands on because we get so many melees back. We're going to be using those to kill lots of things, so might as well increase our super gains as much as possible. For the arms, we're running Heavy Handed, Impact Induction and Focusing Strike. This is for orbs on melee kills, and we'll probably get them back once every 10 seconds, so it's only worth having one on this build. And then causing damage with the melee reduces our grenade and our class ability cooldown, which is just going to feed into all our other abilities. Chest, resist, legs. I'm running innovation for more grenades, but you could also run recuperation if you don't trust your restoration, and solar weapon surges just to get the most damage possible out of our Polaris Lance. Then lastly, on the bond, time dilation, just to increase the time that we have for armor charge, and then both of these just to reduce our cooldowns whenever we Phoenix dive, which hopefully is going to be pretty often. When it comes to weapons, obviously the only choice here is Polaris Lance, as that's what facilitates all of the ignitions that we're getting with this build. You can run literally whatever else you'd like. I'm quite a big fan of this scatter signal with overflow and control burst. I plan to turn this one into one with slice control burst, just so that I can, in harder content, debuff the boss, have him deal less damage. But other than that, it's completely fair game. I am running a bipod reconstruction Apex just because I find that to be particularly useful in less difficult content for ad clear and just generally having a lot of rockets. Battlegrounds especially, because of the constant heavy ammo drops. These are really good. But you can also run recon and bait and switch if you're doing harder content and need more DPS. And then on the artifact, you can run whatever choice of champion mods as you'd like. You want to run Kindling Trigger from Whence You Came. I mean, this one is technically one that you can avoid if you'd like, but it's the best one out of the options, as most of this season is taken in Scorn. Flint Striker, Part of the Flame, Wished Into Being, Revitalizing Blast. I'm running Overload Rockets when there's overloads, but if not, I run Unraveling Orbs because I'm running a strand weapon in the top. But you can obviously mix and match with stasis ones if you are using a stasis weapon instead, like a Chill Clip Riptide, and then Razor Precision and Argent Ordnance because I'm running a rocket launcher with 4 rounds in the mag, so get quite a lot of use out of that. And then for the drip, just so you can see what colours I'm using to get this sort of black and grey effect. Not a big fan of the helmet, but this is the best that I could do. Anyway, that's everything for the build. Thank you for watching and have a good day. Peace.